Hey everyone, Oldies DJ Matt back, and welcome to episode 3 of my one-off 8-part YouTube video series called An Introduction to Deep Diving into Rock and Roll Music of the 60s and 70s, and some 80s. I'm going to dispense with the background introductory description of what this video series is about, who it is intended for, how it's going to be formatted. If you happen to stumble on this episode 3 without having seen episode 1 and 2, you'll find the descriptive background information at the start of those 2 episodes. We're going to get right down to business. I got 6 great albums to talk about today, another lost hit single, and we're going to talk about top 40 countdown shows from the 70s and 80s, a little about Casey Kasem. Okay, so let's get started with the Allman Brothers Band. And this is their 1972 album, Eat a Peach. It is a double LP. About half of this album is new studio music that was recorded at the end of 1971, and the rest of it is live music recorded at Fillmore East much earlier in the year. And unfortunately, I don't have the gatefold cover version of this album. I got the cheap version that came out later where they shoved the 2 LPs inside one jacket. I hate when that happens. Miss out on the album art. So a little background. The Allman Brothers had only minor success with their first 2 albums. They had a couple minor hits. In fact, they had so much downtime that Duane Allman was able to spend several weeks with Derek and the Dominoes and play on that group's album, Layla. There was a couple minor hits, though. I think one was Whipping Post, and then the first time I heard the Allman Brothers Band was the song Revival. And anyway, the group did not enjoy recording in a studio. They have more of an interest in doing longer songs, performing live. They have 2 guitars, 2 drummers. They like interacting with each other and being inventive. So they were very excited about what their 3rd album was going to be, a live album recorded at the Fillmore East. And they poured over all the music from the Fillmore East concerts and picked out 3 LPs worth of music to give to the record company to include on Fillmore East. And the record company would not let them release a triple album. So the double album at Fillmore East was released in 1971. It was very successful. The Allman Brothers became an overnight sensation, and the record company agreed to let them release the songs that didn't make it to Fillmore East on their next album, which would be Eat a Peach, thus making that album a double LP. As a result, Eat a Peach is the only Allman Brothers album that includes in one place all of the different sounds that fans of the Allman Brothers enjoyed at that point. You have the new studio recordings, which are sporting the new Southern rock style, which they pioneered. And then from the live portion, you have a couple of blues songs. The Allman Brothers were not doing blues songs on their new recordings anymore. And you had a long extended concert jam, something called Mountain Jam, which lasts over a half hour long. And so this album goes through different phases, and it's quite enjoyable in that regard. There's also a very sad note about this album. It is the last one to feature the older Allman brother, the guitar virtuose, Duane Allman. During a few weeks of a break between the recording sessions for the studio portion of this album, in October of 1971, Duane was involved in a motorcycle accident and died of his injuries. So the group had to go back into the studio as a quintet and somehow finish this album in a decent frame of mind. And there are certain emotional aspects that are very clear. So the way the album is organized, The songs that were re-recorded after Duane's passing appear first on the album, or in the case of the LP, they appear on side 1. The lead-off song and the album's lead-off single is Ain't Wasting Time No More, written by Greg, and that's describing his new outlook on life. Any day could be your last day. I ain't wasting time no more. And there's a sad song he added called Melissa, which some believe is about Duane, describing how hard it's going to be to go on without Melissa, without Duane. Actually, the song was written quite some time earlier. It is about a woman, but it fits the sad overtone of the opening songs of this album. The rest of the album features Duane, and there's some definite radio favorites here. One Way Out was popular on the radio, so was Blue Sky. Blue Sky is written and sung by Dickie Betts, who also wrote and sang Ramblin' Man, which appears on the group's next album, Brothers and Sisters, which came out in 1973. And the difference is Blue Sky, similar song, features Dickie Betts and Duane Allman doing this guitar duet thing, and that sounds really great. And there's an instrumental called Little Martha, which is a solo acoustic piece. It's one of those instrumentals that you might recognize, you might think you've heard before, but just didn't know the title of it. So, the Allman Brothers Band, Eat a Peach from 1972. Next, Michael Jackson, and this is his 1979 album, Off the Wall. This is the album that came out before Thriller, and it is a lot like Thriller. Both albums are co-produced with Quincy Jones. I've heard some people say Quincy Jones produces Thriller. No, it is co-produced with Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. Same thing with Off the Wall. And so both of these albums have that meticulous attention to detail, lots of interesting percussion, perfectly crafted turn-of-the-decade disco, funk, soul, pop, flawless background vocals. Both of these albums are worthy. Actually, if it weren't for Thriller, this album would probably be considered Michael Jackson's crowning achievement. It has 4 big singles off of it. The title song, the song Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, which appears here in a longer, like 6.5 minute version. She's Out of My Life, and Rock With You. I also remember hearing Girlfriend on the radio at the time. That one happens to be a remake of a song done by Paul McCartney and Wings not long before this. Now, when I was talking about Stevie Wonder on the first episode, I mentioned how some of these performers who started off performing before they were adults were completely controlled by their record company. And once they became adults, they took creative control of their career. That certainly happened with Stevie Wonder. I think Talking Book was the second album where he had complete creative control. In the case of Michael Jackson, this is his first, his debut. And by the way, I love the picture here. You know, he gets dressed up for the occasion, but now he's just leaning against the wall. He's got a big smile. Before he had changed in many ways as a result of the fame, the overwhelming amount of fame of Thriller. Michael Jackson, he was 22, I think, at the time. A hugely talented individual. Okay, next. The Jefferson Airplane and their second album, Surrealistic Pillow. This is the first album that features new band member Grace Slick. On vocals, she replaces Signe Tolley Anderson, who was the original female singer of the Jefferson Airplane. But if you ever hear any of the songs from the Jefferson Airplane's first album, sung with Signe's singing, you can tell that Grace was actually quite influenced by Signe's style of rocking. Isn't it amazing how good Grace sounded 20 years later when she was singing songs on the radio with Starship. Wow. So unfortunately, over the years, except for the two songs where Grace is singing lead, the two singles, Somebody to Love and White Rabbit, the rest of this album seems to have been forgotten about. And that's a shame, because this album is quite a variety of different influences put on one record. You'll hear about the new San Francisco sound, the emerging psychedelia, and you might even hear this album mentioned as being part of that. There isn't that much of the psychedelic sound on this album. There's actually kind of a folk reference in the guitar picking of the song She Has Funny Cars. The album's lead-off single, My Best Friend, is a sunshine pop song. It could have been done by the Mamas and Papas. Besides the two hit singles that Grace sings, the rest of them are all sung either by Marty Balin or by Marty, Grace, and Paul Kantner in three-part harmony. The band was not known for the perfect three-part harmony in concert. They were actually kind of sloppy, but their producer got them singing perfect three-part harmony on this album. A lot of variety here. Coming Back to Me is a long, slow ballad sung by Marty Balin. He's accompanied only with acoustic guitar, and Grace Slick playing a recorder. Embryonic Journey. That song is another example of an instrumental that you've probably heard and recognized. You just didn't know the title of it. It's another solo acoustic guitar piece. Plastic Fantastic Lover, a great up-tempo, crazy lyric rocker. So, 1967, The Jefferson Airplane, Surrealistic Pillow. Next, from 1975, Linda Ronstadt and Heart Like a Wheel. This is Linda's fifth album, and I would describe this album as superbly crafted country-flavored pop, or more precisely, different amounts of country depending on the song. There's a song here, I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love with You, originally written by Hank Williams in the 40s. That song appeared on the country charts as a hit single. We did not hear it on the pop charts. The two pop singles from this album were When Will I Be Loved, originally by the Everly Brothers, and You're No Good, an R&B song which I think was performed by a couple acts before Linda picked it up. What I like about Linda here is that she's reinventing both of these songs, doing it a different way. And, with all due respect to Phil and Don Everly, once Linda Ronstadt came out with her version of When Will I Be Loved, the original Everly Brothers version sounds a little unexciting, I'm sorry to say. The same thing is true for You're No Good. You're No Good has no country in it, at least to my ears. It sounds like a typical early 70s album rock song with its long, drawn-out ending and kind of a moody performance. She picks her songs here very well. She's got songwriters that are well-known, like James Taylor, others that are not as well-known, up-and-coming songwriters. Lowell George is here. He's from Little Feat. You've got Buddy Holly. It doesn't matter anymore. She does that as kind of a quiet, sadder version of the song than we're used to hearing from Buddy himself. Wonderful recording, and of course the beautiful voice of Linda Ronstadt. 1975, Heart Like a Wheel. Okay, next. From 1969, Credence Clearwater Revival and their album Willie and the Poor Boys. So this is classic mid-career Credence Clearwater Revival, very similar to their much more successful 1970 album called Cosmo's Factory. That album had a lot more hits on it. This album has only 2 hits on it. Down on the Corner, and Fortunate Son. This is a great album to pick up if you want to hear some songs that you don't hear very often. Midnight Special is a remake. A couple people have done this song before. Johnny Rivers did it. I remember hearing Paul McCartney did a version of that. Credence Clearwater Revival's version is kind of dramatic. It's very interesting the way they put that together. There's a minor key, kind of a creepy song. It's called Feelin' Blue. There's a clashing dirge rocker called Effigy. Basically, typical Credence Clearwater Revival at their best. Okay. And for our last album, we're going to look at a Christmas record. This came out in 1963, and it is credited to the Ronettes, the Crystals, Darlene Love. Some of you know what record I'm talking about already. So who is the fourth act? Yeah, Bob B. Sox and the Blue Jeans. That's the fourth act credited for this album, called A Christmas Gift for You from Phil Spector. This is the album that contains all of those Phil Spector Wall of Sounds Christmas songs that we heard on the radio every year at Christmas time, whether it be a pop station or an oldies station, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. I think it was around the 2000 we stopped hearing songs from this album. But if you were listening to the radio at that point, or you have a deep oldies station around at Christmas time, you probably heard all of the songs on this album. So, for example, the beautiful, expressive voice of Ronnie Spector performing Sleigh Ride, Ring-a-ling-a-ling, ding-dong-ding version. Just the chorus, no verses on that one. Or Darlene Love and her signature song, which was the album's lead-off single, Christmas, Baby Please Come Home. Or Lala Brooks, lead singer of the Crystals, barreling her way through the rockin' version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Phil Spector spared no expenses putting this album together. He gave it the full Wall of Sound treatment, paid for all the studio time and all the musicians and vocalists that he normally uses, and wrote fresh, interesting rock and roll arrangements for these 12 songs. Did you ever notice, by the way, Bruce Springsteen's version of Santa Claus is Coming to Town is structured the same way as the Crystals version? There you go. This is also a great record to collect just because it's a great way of getting Phil Spector Wall of Sound girl group songs in your collection. There's the matter of what happened with Phil Spector. All accounts from people who worked with him in 1963 say that he had not begun his descent into mental illness yet. And that was at least a few years away. In the book The Wrecking Crew, written by drummer Hal Blaine, he describes Phil Spector's recording sessions as magical, with folks coming around just to witness these recording sessions. One final thing about this album, for a while in the 80s, it was released under a different title. I think it was the 80s. The title was the Phil Spector Christmas album. It had a green cover. It is exactly the same album. Also, you do not want a stereo mix of this record. Phil only had 3 tracks to work with. And this is 1963. So he wasn't going to be... You can't convert something like that into a good stereo sound without adding ambience or something that didn't exist on the original recording. So I generally avoid Phil Spector's stereo mixes. This particular CD is a Sony Legacy remaster. This has been around since the early 2000s, and it is a remaster of the original mono recording. That's what I would recommend looking for. It sounds really good, but not the slightest bit artificially pumped up. It is this record really held up over time. Okay, so let's move on to the topic of lost hits. I hope you all enjoyed Shame, Shame by the Magic Lanterns. Isn't that a great pop song? Today we're going to look at another group from another artist from England. She goes by the name of Lulu, and most of us remember her as a one-hit wonder for her song To Sir With Love. But she had more hits on the British pop singles chart. In fact, I believe her first performance on a single was as a member of a vocal group singing lead on the Isley Brothers song Shout. You know you make me want to shout. I think she was still a teenager at that point, and she rocks her butt off. Lulu she does more rocking than you might expect if the only thing you know from her is To Sir With Love. And the song I'm going to introduce you to today is also a ballad, but she sings this one rougher. She sings this one with some bluesy emotion to it. She kicks it up several notches. This song came out at the end of 1969, going into 1970. It is called Oh Me Oh My, I'm a Fool for You Baby. And as I previously suggested, please look at the web links that I post on my YouTube video page or on my Blue Sky social media page under Oldies DJ Matt. Follow that link to the YouTube video for Oh Me Oh My, I'm a Fool for You Baby by Lulu. I try to pick out the one that has the best audio and the most correct as to the original recording. Great melody, great lyrics, and a great performer, Lulu. Okay, that's your homework assignment. I'm going to finish up by talking about top 40 countdown programs. Now, back in the 70s, the reference standard for top 40 countdown programs was the syndicated radio program hosted by Casey Kasem called American Top 40. It was launched in the summer of 1970, and it spread like crazy, coast to coast and around the world. The program started out as a 3-hour-long program. It went to 4 hours as songs got longer, and they wanted to add a couple elements to the programs, such as long-distance dedications. Also, they had an annoying problem with an annoying limitation with the 3-hour program. Sometimes they had to edit down songs in order to get everything into the 3 hours. So Casey Kasem started out as a voice actor. He loves the music, and he has a type of radio presence, though, even though he's not a local DJ and he's definitely reading from a script, he has a presence which is hard to match. He loves the music and appeared on television in the 80s talking about it on TV as well. American Top 40 was such a good program that you can hear it these days on rerun. And I'm going to recommend that if you are interested in a deep countdown of music from the 70s, check out American Top 40. Now, if you are a subscriber to Sirius XM, check the programming schedule on the station called 70s on 7. American Top 40 new episodes are presented every week at different times. If you are not a subscriber to Sirius XM, on my YouTube video page and on my Blue Sky social media page, I have a web link to a website maintained by somebody of all the different radio stations that he's aware of that play reruns of American Top 40. So it'll be possible for you to catch this great program. The difference being on Sirius XM, there will be no commercials. Now, if you're interested in countdown programs from the 80s, yes, Casey Kasem continued with American Top 40 in the 80s, but if you have Sirius XM, I'm going to recommend a different program for 80s Top 40 countdowns on the station known as 80s on 8. Check the schedule for the program called The Big 40 Countdown. This is hosted by three of the VJs from MTV, who were talking about the songs at the time they were current. And they do a superb job remembering and reliving the music of the 80s. They talk about trivia. They talk about their memories of the music. The program has no commercials. It runs for 3 or 3.5 hours, however long it takes to play all 40 songs. And honestly, if you're looking for a countdown of the 80s, my own feeling is I recommend the Big 40 Countdown above the Casey Kasem programs. Anyway, Top 40 Countdowns are a lot of fun. It helps you dig a little bit deeper, which is what we're all about here. So that concludes episode 3 of my video series. Please check back in 2 weeks for episode 4. Oldies DJ Matt here. Peace, love, and rock and roll.